Hi, I'm Dennis Ferris, and this is the Limitless Energy Podcast. We are here at the RV Super Show in Tampa, Florida, in an iconic Airstream International. So I am absolutely pleased to welcome to the podcast today Justin Humphrey, VP of Sales at Airstream.
Yes,
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And you are doing more than sales.
Yeah, I've had a few roles at Airstream, and I typically take on some special projects along the way. One of them involved your product and a new B van we launched here recently, the range line on the ProMaster. That was kind of a cross-functional team that we needed to get that product to market pretty quick. We kind of had two things going on. We had COVID, so we wanted to take advantage of the increase in sales for the B van space, but then we also we needed to expand our offering because Mercedes-Benz was all we sold on. So we did this cross-functional team where I led it, and we brought something to market in under a year, which for Airstream's very quick.
Was that a supply chain issue?
When you design a product like that in the middle of a pandemic, there was other supply chain issues, but
of course,
yeah, there's no doubt that we're 100% on Mercedes-Benz. So I like to say if they caught a cold, we caught pneumonia. You're really tied to them, and a great partner, by the way, awesome product. And then we couldn't ignore this new segment, or this new offering in the segment that was outselling Mercedes-Benz, and it wasn't because Mercedes-Benz was down in sales. They were continuing to grow, so we thought we can't ignore that anymore. So it was a bit of a supply chain challenge that we had, being single sourced, and then also this opportunity that was now the largest market shareholder of the B van space. But so for a project like that, yeah, I'm VP of Sales, which includes sales teams for travel trailers, motorhomes, internal support systems for dealers and transportation, but also includes parts and service. We also have factory service. So if you buy an Airstream, you can actually have it fixed at the factory. Our customers really like that. So it includes that. So I've always kind of had my hand in a lot of things, but so most recently that. And then McKay Featherstone, who was promoted to Thor, he was our VP of Engineering. Mm-hmm. So we had this interim period where we were trying to find a new role or a new person to replace him, and I took on engineering there for a while as well this year. So yeah, it's been a busy year for me personally, on top of all the craziness with COVID and RV industry booming.
Right. Well, you come from an RV family. I want to get to that eventually, but let's talk first about Airstream itself. So it is iconic. Let's talk about the more recent history. So there are B vans, there are travel trailers, towable trailers. So when did the B vans actually come online, and why was that? Why did that transition happen?
Well, we have a history of motorhomes dating back to the 70s. It's the travel trailer looking type motorhomes, called classic motorhomes. Mm-hmm. So motorhomes were never something that we wouldn't consider or think we're just a travel trailer company. So we actually started our first B vans in the 90s. For a while, we were importing Westphalias from Europe and distributing them. So we've had actually this B van business per se for nearly 30 years. Mm-hmm. We've been in the space, and it's become a really good business for us. If you think about the two customers, are completely different. So if you can grow your B van business, it's not, it's truly incremental. It's not taking away from your trailer business. So we love it. We love that business. And if you think about B vans, they come in built from Dodge or from Mercedes, and then everything fits through the door. Well, we do that with our trailers. Our trailers, the shells are built and everything fits through the door. So it's a segment that, even though it looks totally different than our towables, it's very similar in how we produce it. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural fit for us.
Well, from an electrification point of view, and of course we're the battery manufacturer, there are some differences there. And I know that Airstream has been pretty proactive, especially with the B vans, in taking advantage of the alternators and the fast charging, the high power, and that's something that obviously good for us, good for battery manufacturers in general, and we love to see that extra electrification.
Yeah, our customers expect it from us. They expect us to be innovative. They expect us, they want the best. So if there's a bigger alternator or some equipment from the chassis manufacturer, they want it. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I got here, we had tons of options, 25, 30, but everybody was selecting every option. So we just make things standard now. We have very few options just because our customers expect it. You're buying Airstream, I'm buying the best. We have full confidence that you're going to put in the best. So it's quite a responsibility from our end, but yeah, you're right. We put it all in full tilt. That's how we roll.
What about the relationship with Thor Corporate? How does that work out?
Yeah, I was in the industry for 13 years prior to joining Airstream with Fleetwood. And Fleetwood had a really strong corporate culture, meaning they did all the prints out in Riverside, California. They did all the pricing in California. So it was very top heavy, if you will. And when I came to Thor, I thought, I wonder how much interaction I'll see with Thor. I see very little of Thor. Thor is not in our, plant very often. I think if we stopped sending checks, they'd show up
but
quite
they
a
leave
bit
their
more.
Subs alone.
They really do. They allow them to manage. And I think sometimes they get a little flack for that because maybe they don't leverage kind of to scale on some of the things they could. Mm-hmm. But it really gives each subsidiary its ability to make its own decisions and hold its own place.
Identity. I mean, Airstream is a very different company from Keystone.
It is. So like our club, our Airstream club, they'll say, "Oh, Thor probably made you do that. That was a horrible decision." I'm like, "No, that was me, or that was somebody else on the team." Like Thor doesn't come in and say, "Here's what you're going to build. You're going to stop building that. Here's what you're going to price the products." It's very little oversight in that. Now what they do is financial oversight because we're a public company for SOX compliance, some compliance in terms of recalls and stuff. They want to make sure that they have a seat at that table, and legal, HR, some of the IT security protocols, which is smart. But as far as the business, you guys run the business. You're closest to it. We're the furthest from it. We want the decisions made closest to the market. I love it. It's so entrepreneurial. You feel like you're part of a business that with other leaders of the company, you kind of feel like you're running your own kind of company. I mean, without this just oversight, like I experienced at Fleetwood, where they were making decisions from California, and we were in Indiana, and sometimes you thought, that wasn't the right decision. Thor doesn't do that. They really let us run our business. It's a great model, and actually, a lot of people know this, but in 1980, Thor was formed with Wade Thompson, TH, and Peter Werthwein, OR. That's how they created the name Thor. Their first purchase was Airstream. So I like to kind of kid around with the other subsidiaries and say, basically, we bought all of you guys.
Right.
But if you look at where we are now, I mean, Thor is huge with all the brands they own. We're one of the smallest companies, but biggest brand. So
is that right? It's one of the smallest in the Thor portfolio. Okay, yeah. I didn't realize
but
that.
It's clearly got a big brand. Mm-hmm. So we punch above our weight quite a bit with other brands wanting to do collaborations or partner with us. Now, our company has grown significantly in the short term. You kind of referenced that. It's really since the 08-09 recession, it's just been this upward trend that's been phenomenal. So we're the largest we've ever been in a 91-year history. So to give you context, Airstream is big today as they've ever been. But when you compare it to the other Thor companies, we're still down on the smaller side.
Well, you referenced your personal experience in the RV business. Can we talk a little bit about your father and the RVIA and how that affected the industry?
Yeah, my dad was an attorney, and he was from D.C., and RVIA at the time was hiring him to get through a few things. And they kept trying to hire him full-time, but he was more just, acting as their attorney. But finally they got him in the 70s, and he became the president of RVIA. He ended up retiring in 2006. So he kind of took this small cottage industry and worked on compliance and other things to make sure the government was happy, but not have this incredible oversight that was crippling either. And that's a balance that you have to really be careful with. But RVIA represented all the manufacturers and suppliers. So from a very early age, I was exposed to RVs. I loved it. In fact, they have demos at RVIA, so often would be out camping, and we actually owned our own pop top. First a Jayco, then a Coleman. So we loved it. My dad would always comment years later when we get together as adults, and we would talk about the time Dad tripped while putting the pop top down and in the rain and got muddy, and all the fun camping trip stories you have. We never brought up the expensive Disney trip that we all went to, that he paid an arm and a leg for all the drinks and popcorn at the park. So I think it really taught me the lifestyle, growing up around it. And then also kind of gave me a little glimpse into the business, more than a little, on some of the challenges they had, because if you look at automotive, the oversight that automotive has, HUD, those things, there's definitely some oversight, and, we're tied to NHTSA clearly because we're on the road. But, through our process and inspections that RVIA does at the plants, it's been really, he was part of a team that really kind of made government happy, but also made the manufacturers say, okay, at least we have a fighting chance. We don't have the scale like an automotive or housing. We're a much smaller industry. So, he was a great guy, and it was crazy working in the same business as my dad, because I go home for Thanksgiving, we're just chatting up all kinds of stuff in the industry, and I'm one of 5 kids. The other 4 are like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah. Were you known in the industry as his kid?
Yeah, exactly. Those that knew him at the beginning, I was a little bit like, I don't want to ride the coattails per se. I'm really proud of what he did, but I don't want to say that I got this job or that job. So it was actually funny. Scott from Stat Surveys, who's manages all the market share, when my dad passed, he goes, I didn't even put the connection together. So there was a lot of people who still hadn't connected that. And then my dad laughed that after he got retired, people were referring to him that, oh yeah, you're Justin's dad. So it did flip. And I was like, well, Dad, you've been out of the industry for 15 years, but I think he was more proud of that.
How you made it. Right?
That's right.
Well, we certainly have a very good opinion of the RVIA, because I think it's because of the RVIA that a transition to lithium was able to occur on just a few years really in the RV business. And I think in other industries that sort of self-regulation lacks, and it's harder to make changes and ensure you're doing it in a legal and compliant fashion. So
yeah, they're good at that, and they've had a lot of experience of it over the years to know where the pitfalls are and how to navigate it. In fact, the president now, Craig, we ended up replacing my dad as attorney there. My dad was president and general counsel for a long time. He didn't want to give up the law side of it. That was kind of his bread and butter. But Craig has a real good sense on that. He understands what the government wants, what the agencies want, and then also how do you thread that needle with manufacturers and get to market relatively quick.
Have all the competitors sitting around the table, and that's always interesting. And they make a big deal about being focused on the association itself. And anyway, my dad was big on that. In fact, there's a unity award that's in my dad's name to this day on people who kind of keep the industry together and work together. And he would meet with other presidents of other industries. He was just outside of DC, where most associations are based. But he would look to other industries, and these presidents would be like, it's crazy. We can't get the manufacturers to agree, and they're kind of backstabbing each other, and the supply base is not helpful. And he was like, we have a really unique thing in the RV space where we typically work together towards a common cause, despite the fact that we compete against each other. And, that's not always the case, and it can really break quickly if you're not careful. But yeah, no, it's that, we were talking before the podcast, all the people we know in the small kind of town feel of the RV space. I think it's a huge advantage for the industry, and it allows RVIA to do those things a little faster. It's changing a little bit. I mean, now you see these sort of startup RV companies popping up, electric RVs, and I don't know what you see the future as. Certainly electrification is a big part of it. But I would imagine companies like Airstream have a better shot at innovating. They know the space, they know the customer. Do you want to talk a little bit about the electrification part of it?
Yeah, we've clearly been watching it for a while, and a lot of the early adopter Tesla owners were Airstream owners. So our dealers started to let us know, hey, we're hooking these things up to Model X's and even Model S's, and so those customers tend to get drawn to the Airstream brand and design and our what we're known for in terms of innovation. So, we launched the eStream here at this show last year. It was a concept vehicle, but the idea was this trailer could basically drive itself behind an electric car to extend your range. And then also, if the battery pack's big enough, maybe you could charge your tow vehicle if you needed to as well. And of course, now it's a self-driving trailer. When you get to a campground, you can actually remotely back it into the site as opposed to having to tow it, which is a pain point and a fear kind of thing for new owners. So it was really well received. And the early adopters email us, let us know when it's ready. I'm buying it. Just tell me who I need to send my deposit. The devil's in the details to that level of electrification, because you have this self-propelling trailer that could, you got to have a lot of safety protocols. But the future, I think, is somewhere in that where, as we get more electrified and range is an issue when you're towing, that having that battery pack on the trailer to help supplement makes a lot of sense. So that was a huge, and with Thor's help, Thor's innovation team really driving that, but we had a big seat at that table and still do. We know that, you can't ignore it when you see the success of Tesla and some of these others, and now even the mainstream manufacturers are producing electric vehicles now.
But I would imagine there's not going to be a Tesla in the RV industry. That electrification is going to come from within the mainstream RV industry rather than a startup on the coast, I'm guessing.
I would say so, just because of scale and what that provides. But
we're already down that road. There's no
we are
behind the curve.
No, we're not. We're definitely in front of it. The tough thing is some of these startups, they come from companies like Tesla and the automotive side, building 15 million cars a year. I mean, our entire industry is less than 500,000. So the scale is so different.
Right.
And when you look at the 500,000, it's all different categories where a car is kind of a car, right? The concept's the same. You might have a sports car, you might have a sedan, but it's a car. Or you could have a fifth wheel, a pop-up, a Class A, a Class C, a Class B. So even within the 500,000, it's so fragmented. So if you're going to focus on this small trailer that'll tow itself, and you start looking, it's in the hundreds and then maybe the thousands is your volume. It's tough to make that type of investment work. Where if you're Thor and you've got all these brands and you can put it in across a broader range, it tends to make a little more sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the future's here, and you think about, obviously, that concept vehicle was cool, propelling yourself down the road. But really, what we're working with you guys on is what customers need in the short term, right?
I'd like to think that what we've done with the house bank and really helping the transition to lithium there would actually spur further innovation, including the propulsion. So.
Yeah, I think that's certainly down that path. And then, before then, the off-grid capabilities and being able to use lithium and use your, have your adventures longer off, not tethered to some campsite. There's some great campgrounds, but there's been some campgrounds I go to and I'm like, why am I sitting here? This is nuts. I got all these people around. This isn't relaxing to me. I'd rather be out by some pond off the grid. And these battery packs are now starting to bring a lot more use cases to RVs that we didn't have before. And that's ultimately, I think, where the customer is right now, to say, okay, how can this impact me camping and how can I utilize it more? Right. I think in the RV space too, it really comes down to that air conditioner. How long can you run that daggone air conditioner? Because in the U.S., like right now, it's hot, and we're in Tampa, and that's a big deal. Well, lithium now starts to open up a lot of possibilities with that batteries in the past never could. Right. That's a game changer. And
I have to say we're really proud as a company that we were able to partner with a company like Airstream, and we're a 5-rivet supplier.
Yes.
So we're proud of that too. But it's exciting for me personally to be able to point to like a Pottery Barn. We're involved in that project.
Yes.
So it's really exciting for us.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and we do feel like we bring that because we're a 91-year-old company with a big brand that. We can really ask our suppliers to step up maybe to a level that maybe other manufacturers can't to some degree. That's why we came out with a 5-rivet supplier program on being able to deliver with the right quality and all the support and warranty support that we need. It's really critical for us because our customers look at this Airstream. We're really not being compared to another RV. We're a lifestyle brand. So even though we're in the RV space, customers tend to compare us to cars and boats and really tough comps. The expectations are high. So really having that supplier leg to the stool is critical for us because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you have a supplier who's not meeting a customer expectation, it just brings the whole thing down. And so that's congratulations on that, number one. Number two, it's really important for us because we need that support, and ultimately our customers need the support.
Right. Well, thank you. And we worked hard. I know that, especially with lithium batteries, which is a relatively young field, especially in this space, to be able to get the supply chain robust enough and solid enough that we can always deliver, and it's obviously a priority for us to be able to deliver to our OEM partners, especially Airstream. So.
And it's been a crazy couple years for that.
But having said that, it is pretty dang hot in here, and we probably have air conditioning. Is there an air conditioner in this?
There
rig?
is.
I don't
There
know.
is. We turned it off for audio.
Turned it off for audio. I'm just going to say that we're sweating profusely right now because of the audio, not because we can't turn on the air conditioner in this Airstream. So, anyway, I just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast today, Justin.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me, and look forward to working with your team on some innovations of the future and moving the ball forward.
You certainly will. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I'd like to thank my special guest today, VP of Sales at Airstream, Justin Humphreys. Thank you, Justin. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms.